is the arbiter serving him the entire death sequence in the universe, and you think that you're not serving him and you're like part. You're an employee. And Sylvanas was like maybe a middle manager. And this guy was Sam Walton. Big fucking surprise. It wasn't a partnership. You see what I'm saying?
Games, why not?
It's just such a ridiculous assumption to make, to even assert that she didn't think it was a fucking, that she actually thought it was a partnership.
Devs want.
It's just so ridiculous. Anyway.
Like you just watching
this entire time, and she refuses to serve him, then she's taken prisoner.
The jailer is able to open a portal
watching
to who knows where, taking Anduin
when
with him.
you
and the Primus had us take some time to retrieve some new sigils.
Now we have gathered our forces. We are working with the Primus to open our own gateway to pursue the jailer to this realm unlike any we've seen before.
Zereth Mortis? That's cool.
The Primus opens a portal, and we come into this alien
If devs of their game
it's completely white,
maximum
foggy,
associate
we're
their
walking
game
on
with
water
shit.
for some reason.
They can only make out some shapes, some figures there, some crazy devices and
Just
consoles.
don't know.
Eventually, you make your way to a giant gate, and behind it lies Zereth Mortis.
Zereth Mortis was created by the first one, and it is intended to create afterlives.
Think of it as being tucked away in the fabric of the Shadowlands itself. It's kind of the behind the scenes of these afterlives that we've journeyed to.
It's the land where the progenitors, the first ones who created all of the realms of the Shadowlands, this is their workshop.
They've created everything we've experienced in Azeroth and Shadowlands, and even realms we haven't discovered yet.
These first ones built the universe, as far as we know, but their intentions or methods are completely unknown.
But of course, the jailer's presence here is disrupting this process, and we're working to push back against the jailer's forces and protect this place.
Why? Why is the jailer bad? Like, there's never been an explanation of why the jailer's bad, right? So, because he's bald? Because no, that's not why. That can't be why. He has pointy armor. That is true. That is not protagonist behavior. You're right about that. I don't understand this at all. Like, I understand the idea. So, like, the idea of the this is basically the it's like the, let me think of a way to describe what like this basically is, like a metaphor for it. Like the threads of fate, right? Or something like that. It's basically... Yeah, okay. So it's basically like, you know how you have like different card games, and there's like Yu-Gi-Oh! And there's Magic the Gathering, and there's Pokemon. And there's, you know, other card games too. And let's assume that all of the card games are printed at the same printer. Well, this is like somebody who really doesn't like Magic the Gathering going to the printer to change the text on the cards that he keeps losing to. That's really what this is. I feel like that's the best way that I can explain this.
I think the artists have done a fantastic job, and I know they did a lot of research, and they looked at a lot of real-life examples of very strange places in the real world.
As a team, we were really trying to make this place as alien as possible, so we really wanted to make everything feel completely unique and completely different. Our trees here are floating. We have stones that are floating. We even have the massive Forge of Afterlives that is floating in the center of the zone.
And true to its name, it's something that is kind of putting together a new afterlife to be sent out into the Shadowlands.
We have this water all around you because water is really the catalyst for any kind of creation.
It's actually unlike any other water that we've seen before. This is actually water that we can walk on. It almost creates like a threshold between Zereth Mortis and some other kind of more primordial space right below it. Everything you see in Zereth Mortis has a purpose, an intention behind it. For us, it was really important to find ways to convey that intention in the environment itself. And one of the ways in which we did it was through the...
So, I think the visuals of the world. So there's been a couple of times where I think probably the best job that WoW has ever done with this was, do you remember whenever you're in Antorus and you go into the zone where Agrimar is, and like the giant scale of like the Antorus temple and everything? It's just totally fucking different than anything you've ever seen in the game before. And I even think that the Guardian of the first ones, the fight, is really good too because of how unique the architecture and the design of the characters are. I noticed that. I thought it was very good. With this, I think it's good. Sure. Yeah, it's definitely good. But I think that this is just like such an ambitious story to tell. I feel like you probably couldn't even tell this story in 2 expansions, and they're trying to tell it in 2 patches. I don't know. I feel like it's just so ambitious to do that. It's Nagrand 2.0. It's not really Nagrand. I mean, it's just got a thing of water here, right? I mean, I think you could say it's Charlian too, right? Because that's what it was in the Endwalker cinematic too. Like, where's that water coming from?
This duality between a lush and a dry biome. In the dry biome, we see perhaps what the original look of the zone was when the progenitors were first establishing this workspace for themselves. And in the lush biome, we see the result of their experimentation with plant life and fauna and things like that.
These are all test beds for what we'll eventually see elsewhere.
Okay.
From there, we started thinking about what kinds of creatures would be in this place that are fundamentally prototypes. There's terraforming here. There's creatures that are building afterlives. We tried to really stretch and think what that might be like.
My personal favorite includes the giant armored snail, and we also have a progenitor chicken, which answers the question of what came first.
Yeah, I actually do like the chicken.
These first ones who crafted Zereth Mortis, what they left behind were the Automa, meant to take care of the place and make sure that it fulfilled its function to create afterlives.
Okay.
The Automa have several different classes, and you can see this in their silhouettes. We have the Builders, we have the Protectors, we have the Casters, and each one of them have a specific role within the Shadowlands. And then you'll also discover the Jiro, which are a part of the Automa. They're a little more quirky, they have a little more personality, they are a little more sentient than the other Automa, so some of them even split off to pursue their own desires.
Unfortunately, when we found our way in, Devourers also found their way in. They are ravenous.
They're consuming this weird energy, and it's causing them to mutate and to fall apart.
And the Automa, where they are confronted by them, some of them are fighting them off.
And so it's going to take some time for them to understand that we're here trying to help them drive out this threat.
I just feel like whenever you're talking about like these intergalactic, interplanetary, all-knowing creatures that literally create existences themselves, number one, non-elites from Korthia probably shouldn't be much of a threat to them. And number two, wouldn't they have a certain, like, better understanding of reality? You know what I mean? Like, it just... Basically Halo. Oh, with like, what was it? The Forerunners and the Precursors? Was that it? I'm trying to remember. That's what it was. Yeah, yes. And then the Precursors basically disenchanted themselves, and then they became the Flood. I don't know. Correct? Yeah. Halo lore? I know a lot of stuff. Let me think. It's just nonsense altogether. It's not supposed to make sense. No, well, the Halo lore does make sense. This, I think... I think it's kind of odd, right? Because, like, where are the first ones? Like, wouldn't they call up one of them and be like, yeah, the nipple guy, I don't know what happened, but he's here again. You know, I need you to call security. Right? I mean, yeah, Baldy's back. Let's get him again. He's got his armor somehow. You know what I mean? Like, what? It just doesn't really make a lot of sense. No shirt, no service. Oh, that's why he could come back, because he's got a shirt on now.
Fortunately, we've got some allies. There are some enlightened brokers here that we're going to be working with.
But it's a broker that arrived here quite a long time ago and has had a change of heart from looking at the world as a very transactional place to seeing this place as a holy place, a sacred place. We meet an enlightened one named Fareem, and Fareem needs our assistance, and in return, he leads us to Haven,
which is a hub that has been created out of progenitor ruins, and this is where the enlightened really have made their home.
Haven serves as our foothold here, as well as use it as a base of operations and really start unlocking the mysteries of this land.
Okay.
The enlightened brokers are intent on protecting and preserving the work of the first ones here, but now they're seeing Zoval bring his forces against the Atoma and tear up the land, and they are eager for assistance.
The brokers themselves are very ostentatious.
Why don't they ask the first ones? Like, this is the thing, is like, whenever you have a story like this, like, I hate it whenever you have stories like this and there's like an obvious question that doesn't get answered. It's the same as, like, you know, in the Eternals in Marvel, and they're like, oh, well, we're not supposed to be here unless there's deviants, but Thanos had the deviant gene from fucking, from Titan, the planet that he came from. Like, it's just like the obvious fucking thing that you immediately ask. It's the immediate fucking thing that you ask. And it's like you if you're telling a story and it has that big of a fucking plot hole, it's just terrible, man. It's just fucking terrible. I hate whenever things have huge plot holes like that. It's like the reason why Legion was so good as a story is because it was like, oh, well, we can't help Agamar help us because he's fucking, like, you know, it's like the Titans actually helped us. It made sense.
They're very into materialism, but the enlightened are not that at all. They have relinquished this material way, and you'll see this reflected in their clothes. They're a little tattered, they're a little faded, because it just isn't important to them anymore. They're just here for the pursuit of knowledge.
Okay.
When players arrive, they're kind of fishes out of water. And one of the first things that we have to do is start learning how to communicate with the Automa. Think of it as a kind of runic language, based in symbols.
We will bond with a small construct who's pretty cute, actually. And with his assistance and the assistance
cool.
of Fareem,
I like it. Yeah, I think
we
that's
will
really
learn
cool.
eventually how to understand the symbols through the cipher of the first ones.
I think that's actually really clever, right? I like how you introduce the quests and you can't read any of it. You know, I think that's cool. Like, just as a narrative device, because it's something that we've never really had before. Like, you never had like a time where like you read the quest and you can't really communicate with the NPCs. So it's like a new avenue of interaction that the player can have with the game that is unique. No Man's Sky? No, other games have done it, I'm sure. I'm talking about within WoW.
Cover different parts of this alphabet and start to learn more about the progenitors and Zereth Mortis itself.
it will allow you to unlock new and different forms of content. So that can range from daily quests to new options on the vendors to places to explore and new side quests that open up. So it's really the gateway to exploring the far reaches of Zereth Mortis.
As we looked into the development of Cypher of the first ones, we wanted something that was unique that players haven't seen before. A little bit of familiarity, but something that takes that to the next level.
We really involved the whole team in this creative process. We worked with our UI team to be able to represent those through text, through these things talking and seeing them on screen in chat bubbles and in our chat window. Little by little, these kind of runes start taking shape into words that we recognize. But it's going to be a process that unfolds over the course of playing through Eternity's End.
I think this is an interesting idea. Like, I think the creation of after, like, I think this is, that sounds cool. Like, they might not implement it the way I think that it would be cool, but the way that they are explaining it has the potential to be really, really cool. I think that's interesting. It's like, you know, I'm sure eventually you'll find effectively a Rosetta Stone, right? Or something like that, and or maybe the Rosetta Stone will be the 9.2.5 catch-up mechanism that allows you to automatically just read what they're saying, and it only costs a certain amount of catalog research that you have to get from Korthia. So, you know, like, I don't want to give them any ideas, but that's basically what it could be.
Стримеры, вот, например, предыдущий плей бы никогда бы не нашли бы, как и разрабы. Зато система автоматическая легко найдет. То, что за них и делает вся система нахуй. Просто генерирует столы идеальные нахуй, идеальные сюжеты. Так, чтобы в это можно было поверить.
Job's done.
Yeah, like that's really cool. So I think that the way that, because like there's always been like a very strong mixture between, and like metaphors and literature and writing that correlates creation and life to music, and to have the things that create life and the afterlife behave in musical ways. I think is a good literary device. Yeah, that's cool.
То есть они бы загейнили импу фамильяра на мою бы сторону.
They just didn't want to pay voice actors.
Такой в подсос нахуй.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that could be it too. That's cool, but it doesn't look like Warcraft at all. I mean, I hate to tell you this, but in the original Titans mythology, Sargeras was basically Melkor. I mean, he pretty much was.
That they're saying, but still hear those tones.
They changed it slightly. Sepulchre,
the Jailer's true goal has never really been to escape the Maw or to gain power. He's been focused on reaching this place called the Sepulchre, to go into this place of power and to really rewrite the rules of the universe. We'll learn that the Jailer has breached the Sepulchre of the first ones, and this becomes our new raid for Eternity's End. We're going to gather our forces, we're going to pursue the Jailer inside. Once you go inside the Sepulchre, there's some mind-blowing visuals. This is a place that should not be able to exist according to the laws of physics as we know them on Azeroth. Just looking out into this impossible sky according to the laws of physics.
This reminds me a lot of Coils of Bahamut, you know, like a little bit. This is really cool. Yeah, like the design of this is nice. I like it. Yeah, Allegan technology, exactly. Yeah, you know, this is cool.
As we know them on Azeroth, just looking out into this impossible sky of seeing these ancient works of the first ones, those laws don't apply to anything we see here.
Among the bosses that we're going to face in Sepulchre of the first ones include the Jailer's forces, maybe a Dreadlord or two that you haven't tied up loose ends with. will face a consular. This is similar to a being like Algalon, but the jailer's gotten to it and has infused his domination magic into the consular. Algalon, but the jailer...
Либо
I thought
находят
the
какие-то другие
consulars like
пути,
Algalon were agents of the Titans.
абузерские.
I thought it was very explicitly stated that Algalon was an agent of the Titans.
Job's done.
Okay. So, the Dreadlords, was it ever explicit... this is a question, I actually don't know the answer to this. Was it ever explicitly stated that, in the story, not just implied, but stated, that Sire Denathrius was the progenitor of the Dreadlords? Because, like, I feel like that, the 9.1, I must have just clicked through that story, or I never really got to it. Because I feel like that's such a big deal. Like, you have the Dreadlords in Warcraft 3, and it's actually Sire Denathrius with this 10 billion IQ fucking plan that spans tens of thousands of years, that involves corrupting Sargeras, you know, infiltrating the Burning Legion, infiltrating potentially, what's his name? The Light-Forged Dreadlord, it starts with a D. Infiltrating the Army of the Light and doing all of these things. Lothraxion, yeah, there we go, Lothraxion. And it just kind of, it's like, okay, well, that's done. Yeah, we got him. That's about it. It's like, I don't know, I feel like they could have talked about that a little bit more. I mean, it's just, that's such a big conclusion. And I just feel like that should have had like a multiple cinematics, like talking about it, explaining it, like, oh man.
Will face a consular. This is similar to a being like Algalon, but the jailer's gotten to it and has infused his domination magic into the consular. Before we get to the jailer, however, we need to get to Anduin first. Our hope is that we can learn whatever Anduin knows about domination magic. We need to be able to resist it, or better yet, fight it.
We know players have been waiting a long time for the return of tier sets, and as devs, we have too.
It's a great blend of progenitor magic, golds, and metals, along with those class-defining.
So obviously, like, the armor here, I really like it. I think it looks cool. I think this looks cool. Because here's... I understand, like, you guys are thinking, oh, it's like, it's not cool, I don't like the colors. There's clearly going to be different versions. There's going to be 6 different versions of this, right? There's going to be LFR, normal, heroic, mythic, the normal PvP version, and the heroic PvP version, right? So there's going to be 6 different versions. And no, there won't be. So I don't know. But I think that would be cool. Check the in-game runs on Wowhead.
Silhouettes, wolves for shamans, pointy things for rogues. It's going to look amazing.
Our class and combat team was super excited to bring class sets back. This is something that felt really right for the story. We're in the final act of the Shadowlands saga. We're here literally on the brink at each story. We're in the final act of
I'm gonna be honest, I think this looks really bad, and like I don't really like the way that looks either. The gnome.
Bring class sets back. This is something that...
Like, these look like the Trial of Valor sets with more shinies on them. You know, like that's kind of what I feel like it looks like. You know, Trial of Valor sets with more shinies.
Felt really right for the story. We're in the final act of the Shadowlands saga. We're here literally on the brink at eternity's end. And what better place to...
I really like the empty face. Like this actually I think is cool. I really like this this tier set.